Hello, everyone. Good evening. We are here to meet one more speaker for Poliglotar 2021. And his name is Plínio Marco de Toni. He is Brazilian, but his talk will be in English. And the title is Motivation in Language Learning, How Science Can Help You to Do What You Would Like to Be Doing. So let's get to know a little bit better Plínio. So Plínio, who are you? Where do you come from?
Hey, Juliano. First of all, I'd like to thank you so much for the invitation, and thanks a lot for having me here. And so I'm a professor at the university. It's a university here in the south of Brazil. It's called Universidade Estadual do Centro-Oeste, the Midwestern State University. It's a public university here, and I teach undergrad students in grad, so master's and doctorate students in psychology. And I coordinate a lab here that is called Psychology of Bilingualism Lab, which is a lab related to different aspects of bilingualism. So we discuss a lot what it means to be bilingual. And we do research in 3 different fields related to bilingualism. So the bilingual brain, so this whole branch of neurosciences that is called neurolinguistics of bilingualism. So how the brain organizes different languages in bilingual people and polyglots, hyperpolyglots as well. And also the whole idea of raising a bilingual kid, so bilingual families and bilingual kids. So how we can acquire language and how we can acquire 2 or more languages growing up. So this is something that we do research with here. And also the idea of how we can use psychology in order to learn language better. So the field of language learning psychology, which is what I chose here to talk about in this conference.
Okay, and so you are combining psychology and language learning, right?
Psychology and language learning. Exactly.
And which of these 2 fields interested you first?
So I'm a psychologist, but I have a very interesting story with language learning. Even though I learned my first second language kind of old, a couple of years ago, actually. But since I was a child, I was raised in a multilingual environment here in Brazil. So I remember very well one of my neighbors, for example, they spoke German at home. And I like that thing so much because I remember going there and seeing them speaking German to each other, like my little friend there and his parents. I found that so awesome. And on the other side of the fence, there was a Japanese family, so they would speak Japanese at home. In front of my house, there was a family that came from Switzerland. They would speak like Swiss German as well. And so I grew up in this environment. My family, they spoke Italian, especially my grandparents. So I grew up listening to different languages, learning a little bit of German, a little bit of Japanese, a little bit of Italian, but actually I never learned a language up to a point that I could actually use the language in order to do things.
Because you were interested in other things.
But I was very interested, very interested.
But why did you not go to a language school when you were a teenager, for example?
We didn't get the chance to do that. And so unfortunately, I was raised in kind of a poor family and we didn't get the chance to do that. But this mindset of like, man, someday I want to learn all these languages, you know, someday I want to go abroad, someday I want to live in another language. I always had that with me. I decided to take psychology at university, but to have an idea, like I took psychology at the Federal University here in Paraná, but at the same time, I took some classes from the language department, Italian, for example. And so I always had like one foot here, one foot there. So letras, right? So especially language and psychology, language and psychology. When I became a professor, And then I took my master's and my doctorate in neuropsychology, which
In
is a
Brazil?
field of, here in Brazil, which is a field of neurosciences. And I always did research with the brain, but always thinking, someday I'm gonna find a way to study language.
When did you
Not study the
finally
language,
start
but study
languages?
how
And
we can.
yeah, and when did you finally start to learn languages, and which languages do you speak?
So that's an interesting story, because maybe seven years ago, I was living my life here as a professor, doing research, talking to people, and then we got in touch with somebody from Canada. But I had my, let's say, academic English, like I could get by, like reading a couple of things related to my work. But I never actually studied any language, like formally, or even try to use it. And then I was like, yeah, like I can read scientific papers, I can understand them. I'm gonna go talk to this Canadian. And of course, like I couldn't. Obviously, I couldn't. I couldn't say a word. I couldn't understand anything the guy said. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna change that right now. I'm gonna start today. And since I'm a psychologist and I study cognitive strategies and behavioral strategies in order to change habits, I was like, I'm gonna apply that to my own language learning, and I'm gonna help my students to do that, because that's the point, like obviously it's very hard to learn a language. Everybody here knows that better than me, way better than me. But maybe it's even harder to do what you are supposed to do every day in order to get there, because language learning, it's not something that happens right away, right? It takes years for you to get like confident and actually be able to use the language in order to do something. So I applied that to myself. I started helping my students here, my psychology students, and then we created this lab. So I learned English this way, just communicating with people, with other researchers, professors, students from other countries, helping my students to do the same, my psychology students. And then last year I did that with Italian as well, same thing. So I got in touch with a couple of Italians.
Only having conversation with people.
Working, always working, working with somebody from different countries.
Did you take classes, for example, in English or
never
Italian?
took a class. Never took a class.
Because you can see you have a
and
very
then I did
high
that
level
with
of
Greek.
English.
My Greek is pretty lame, but
okay.
But why? That's very interesting, because I found what to do with the English. I found like a lot of stuff to do with Italian. I never found anything to do with my Greek. So I never developed my Greek actually up to a point that I could be conversational, because I never found anything to do with that. And that might change in the future. I hope so. Let's see. But that's the whole idea. Try to use the language in order to do something else. And by doing that, you can actually
and when you make research
things, right?
in Brazil during your master's or doctorate degree, do you study real people? Do you follow their lives? How does it work? And are those people only Brazilians or also foreigners?
So my master's and my doctorate degree I took in neuropsychology. So it had nothing to do with bilingualism or language learning in this case. So we analyzed, especially the functions. I mean, like I did research in this field, the functions of one area of the brain that is called prefrontal cortex. And I developed some instruments in order to measure the functions of this area. Nowadays, I advise master's and doctorate dissertations on bilingualism, and especially in psychology of bilingualism, but also other fields related to bilingualism and language learning. And then we, just for you to have an idea, one of my students, she's finishing her master's right now. She's gonna defend her master's thesis in a couple of weeks now. We analyzed a family here in Brazil who started thinking about raising, I mean, like a specific parent who started thinking about raising his kid bilingual, but she's also 11 years old.
The kid is 11.
Like, the kid is 11 years old. So kind of old for a bilingual child, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
So all the processes and all the challenge and all the strategies that actually he could use in order to change language, that is not easy to do, totally possible, but it's not easy to change a language once you start speaking a language with the kid. And all the strategies and challenge that this bilingualism at home, let's say, is related to. So this is what we did. This is one of the fields. Another field that I advise students, and for example, I have a doctorate student who is doing research with that, is the field of EMI, English as a medium of instruction.
Mm-hmm.
So how we can actually use English in order to teach other things here in Brazil. So for example, my classes in psychology, most of them are taught in English here in Brazil to my Brazilian students. And of course, like we have also students from other countries. But how we can actually use a second language in order to teach something that is not the language itself, and learn the language while you learn other kind of content, let's say in this case, psychology. So
okay,
this is
so
one of the things that I do.
You follow some students who are doing their masters, and they make research about bilingual families.
Yeah, that's one of the things.
Yeah, good. And that's what you're going to talk about in your lecture at Poliglotar, or how is it going to be?
No, in this case, I am considering because one of the things that I thought, at first I thought about talking about the bilingual brain. So how the brain organizes two or more languages and a lot of consequences of having two languages in the brain, this kind of stuff. But then I thought, like, what would people be more interested in? Like people who attend this conference. So I figure most of people who go to Poliglotar, they are learning language and they want to become polyglots, hyper polyglots, right? That's the idea. So I thought, like, what would be more useful for them right now? Eventually, maybe we can even talk about the brain and how that works, or how you can raise a bilingual child. But I thought, no, you know what? Like, I want to help these people with very practical strategies, cognitive strategies, behavioral strategies, for them actually to do what they want to do, because that's the hardest thing, you know. Usually we want two things at the same time, and that's the problem. So if you think about people who are doing a diet, right? So I eat chocolate all day long, and which is a problem, right? For my health, for a lot of stuff. I want two things. I want to be healthy, but I want the chocolate. Yeah. I want the chocolate right now, but I want to be healthy, right? So that's the problem. With language learning is not different, because if you are, for example, my Greek is very, very lame, like completely useless. But if I want to improve my Greek, of course, I have to change the subtitles to my Netflix TV show from Portuguese or from English, which are languages that I'm more comfortable with, or even Italian, to Greek, right? Yeah. And I'm not going to be comfortable with that. I'm going to struggle a lot. It's going to suck a lot, that. I'm totally sure. But this is what I'm supposed to do right now. And so it's as if I wanted two things. I want to enjoy the movie, right? I want to enjoy the movie because I want to be able to talk about this movie with my friends, with my family. I want to enjoy the movie, but I also want to improve my Greek, for example. So how we deal with that? And of course, this is a choice that we have to do every day. Everybody who learn language, multiple languages, but even the first, second language, right? They have to choose, they have to make these choices every day. What I'm going to do now, I'm going to listen to this podcast in Portuguese that I understand everything. I'm going to have a lot of fun. I'm going to learn a lot of stuff. You know, I'm going to enjoy myself. Or should I listen to this podcast in my French that I can't understand much, my English, my Italian, my Greek, whatever? That's the problem. So how we can use psychology in order to face this challenge of choosing, let's say, the right thing, but not for now, for my future.
Yeah.
This is what I'm going to be talking about.
Yeah, it's
much
great because we already had some talks about neuroscience in Poliglotar 2 years ago in São Paulo, for example, by Igor Pereira. He talked about neuroscience and how the brain works when we learn languages. Last year, we had a talk about motivation in language learning, something like what you're going to tell here. And now you are combining both motivation and neuroscience.
And neuroscience, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I think that's you summed up pretty well. And one of the things that we're going to see during this lecture is actually what happens in the brain. So which parts of the brain, let's say, light up when we go for instant gratification. So my Netflix TV show in Portuguese, and I feel very comfortable and I feel good about myself, you know, I enjoy it. But then I think, oh man, I shouldn't be doing that, you know, like,
okay.
It should be in English, it should be in French.
Now
and
let's see.
On the other hand, what happens in the brain when we choose our future self. So we're going to talk about about the future self a lot in this
okay,
lecture.
now let's interact a little bit with the people who are here. If they have some questions for you, let's see. Or maybe if we don't have questions from the audience, I'm going to finish interpretation and maybe we will have some questions from the interpreters. But first, Patricia would like to ask a question. Please, Patricia.
Hi, everybody. Hi, Plínio.
Hi, Patricia.
Listening to your speech, and I was wondering, in fact, I was remembering the book when I decided to start being a simultaneous interpreter. I start to buy books in English, only in English, because it's my pair of language. And I started to read them, and a lot of difficulties. I started buying nutrition, books about nutrition. And it was very difficult because I started reading and I got stuck in many words because it's very specific vocabulary, right? But I insisted that I have lots of books about nutrition in my bedroom, and each night I write down and I search for the word. And you said something about being discomfort doing this kind of thing, because it's easier if I buy this book translated to Portuguese, okay? And then I remembered the voluntary discomfort. I don't know if you know this kind of expression, term, or idea. It's very used in nutrition field about biohacking. I don't know if you know something about biohacking. It's a kind of hack you use to potentialize your autoimmune system. Okay, one of the things, one of the hacks you may do to boost your autoimmune system. And I thought it was very interesting because that's the reality. You start to read a book in a second or third language, whatever, and you start to be discomfort because you can't keep on with the story, with the idea. All the time you have to pause and to search for the word.
Go to the dictionary.
Yes, look at the dictionary, and sometimes
try to guess, like, oh man, I can't understand it.
Yes, and sometimes you get, for me, for example, I like to do a lot of research, and then I go to one page, to another site, another dictionary, and when you see, you go there at the other side of the world.
You end up reading another book, like, oh man.
What I was reading, what was, I forgot completely because I did the research and everything. But I think this concept, it's very interesting because we are very used to comfort things. It's easier. It gives you pleasure. It's easier, let's say.
Yeah.
But I think this is important, voluntary discomfort. And you have to know why you're doing a voluntary discomfort. It's for your benefit, of course. There must be a benefit for it. And I think maybe you can deal with this, talk about this subject.
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
At Poliglotar. And it will be great. I think it will be great for us.
Sometimes
nice,
we
Patricia,
do.
Pretty cool.
Sometimes we do things we don't like because in the end it will be better. Like we take a surgery or we do some things, go on a diet, but it's not comfort. But in the end, it will be worth it, right?
Yeah, one of the things that I'm gonna do in this lecture, this is how I'm planning this lecture, this talk, is bring a lot of research studies. It's gonna be all based on research studies, and then from these studies, we're gonna see how we can apply that to real life. So we're gonna start with research studies on psychology of motivation, and this is a pretty good point that you made, Patricia. So how we can deal with this temporary discomfort, because I don't know, I'm going to just say one of the research studies that we're going to be talking about here, but very briefly. Probably you guys already know the marshmallow test, right? The marshmallow test was this test. It was an experiment, very famous in psychology, that it was made like many decades ago. They got like a bunch of 4-year-old kids, and they put one at a time in a room with one marshmallow, and they said to the kid, all right, so you can eat this marshmallow right now, or if you don't eat this marshmallow now, I'm gonna come back in 15 minutes. 4-year-old kids, it's hard, very hard. It's hard for adults, right? But for kids, in 15 minutes, I'm gonna come back and you're gonna have 2 marshmallows. Do you want 2 marshmallows? Yeah, I want 2 marshmallows. All right, so just wait. And some of these kids, they were able to wait. They waited 15 minutes, and some of them, most of them, actually they just ate it up like right away. Nah. They didn't even wait for the researcher leave the room. They just got it in rate. But what is very interesting, we are gonna see how we can apply that to language learning during the talk, is the strategies, the cognitive and the behavioral strategies that the kids who handled this temporary discomfort, because it's very tough, like to keep looking at the marshmallow and not eating it. So they actually did a couple of things. They did a couple of things. For example, there is one kid, he started licking the marshmallow, licking. Nobody said anything about licking, right?
Okay.
I can't eat, but I can lick, right? Nobody said anything. So another one, for example, he covered his eyes. He didn't want to look. So we are going to see how these are actually strategies that we can use for a bunch of different stuff, but also for language learning, and how we can apply that for language learning. So, and what they found very interesting, I'm not going to say everything here because it's a lot of stuff, but they found, for example, that these 2 groups of kids, the ones who could handle this temporary discomfort and the ones who couldn't, they had very different futures, very different lives, regarding a lot of different things that are related to learning for the future, taking your time every day and do what you're supposed to do every day. Maybe right now you don't have this instant gratification. Maybe right now you don't understand the movie very well. Maybe right now you don't understand the podcast, but in the future you're gonna have what you really want to have, right? Yeah. That is become fluent in this language, for example. So this voluntary discomfort is also, it's a concept related to that. Some people take cold showers, right? So this is kind of cliche. So take a cold shower and you're gonna be able to do that. You don't have to take a cold shower, but that's also a good idea. You can do other things, but that's the idea. So we can actually practice that. You can get pretty good at handling temporary discomfort.
Plínio, now we have a question from Kleber. Are your studies focused on adults or younger learners, children?
Regarding language learning, psychology of language learning, I think what I can contribute the most is to, in the case of people, let's say teenagers and adults who are learning the language, but especially outside a classroom. It could be related to a classroom, not a problem, but especially like the practice that you are supposed to do every day outside the classroom. So this is something that people usually ask me, like, if I work with motivation in a classroom environment? Not really. So what I do is, like, when you leave the school and you actually have to practice a lot every day, how you can do that? Just to avoid this thing that most people do, right? They went from one class to the next. A week later, a week later, a week later. Nobody learns anything like that, right? So you gotta practice a lot every day. So how you can use these psychological strategies in order to practice every day. So teenagers, little kids is more complicated, but we can adapt some strategies as well.
So let's finish the interpretation for the moment, and I'm going to ask the interpreters if they have questions for you as well.
Tem algumas perguntas para vocês também.
Okay, so now everyone is together here. Teresa, Rafael, do you have questions? Cido, I don't know. Or you were too concentrated interpreting that you didn't elaborate any questions.
I bet so.
No, can I say something? Can I say something? I totally agree with what you said. Find practical experiences to practice your language, right? Not just go from class to class. I did the best. I had the best idea to do that. Do you know what I did? I married a Canadian. So I'm still practicing my English with him all these years, and I love when he corrects me and corrects my pronunciation. So that was the best way that I found.
Raised bilingual children, right?
Actually trilingual, because I always spoke to him in Portuguese, and I put him at a French school all his life. He went to a French school, and at home we speak English, so he's fully trilingual. Yeah.
So a lot of code switchings at home.
Yes, a lot of what? Sorry, I didn't get you.
Code switching.
Code switching. Yeah. Okay.
This thing of going from one language to the next and coming up with phrases with 3 languages in the same sentence.
Yes. Oh yeah. A lot of that.
In Canada, that's very, very usual, right?
Yes.
You know, one of the things that I did, and this is all part of a strategy as well. So as I said, I started actually trying to say something in English, because before that I couldn't put together like a sentence in English. 7, 8 years ago. 5 years ago, I decided to start speaking English to my kids. Eddie, Eduardo, my oldest, he was 7 years old. Now he's 12. Nowadays, he speaks English way better than me.
Nice.
Way better than me. And my youngest one, Nicholas, he just turned 4, and I always speak English to him since the get-go. And the times that I spoke Portuguese to him, he started laughing like crazy, you know, like, who are you? Are you an alien?
He doesn't know your voice in Portuguese.
My voice, and even, that's pretty cool, because even though like he understands everything, of course, my wife speaks Portuguese to them, and we live here in Brazil. But me speaking Portuguese, that sounds very weird. So he starts laughing. And so this is also pretty nice, because of course I do that for them. They speak English, they are bilingual, but I also did that for me, in the sense that it's a no way out strategy, no way out. So I started speaking English to them. Now I gotta keep it up. No, I didn't. I gotta improve my English. I'm their father. I'm supposed to be a good father. I gotta say everything that I gotta say, right? So I gotta improve my English. So this is something that people do. Like you can do that with your kids or your husband, boyfriend.
That's great. Right? That's great, Plínio. I don't know if we have more questions from someone else.
Julian.
Yeah, Cido, please.
Plínio, do you have any tips for someone like me, someone who is a beginner in interpretation? Because we have our ears as a channel. You are talking, and I need to pay attention to what you are talking. And at the same time, I should to speak. And this, for me, it's as a beginner, cause confusion, because I don't know to pay attention in my voice on.
Yeah.
Man, I imagine how hard that might be. To be very honest, I never did that. Like that's not my field. And the only time that people asked me here at the university to do simultaneous interpretation, I was like, yeah, let me give it a try. I don't know, maybe I can do it. So I just came back. I put on a YouTube video. I was like, I'm gonna just interpret this guy here. It didn't last 30 seconds. It's very hard. It's very, I mean,
Yeah,
who am I to say that to you guys, right? But it is hard.
Yeah, it is hard, but it is something that you can learn how to do, and you can practice
Yeah,
and get
absolutely.
better at that. It is not
I think you can ask the other interpreters here who has more experience, because I bet there are a lot of techniques, but unfortunately I wish I knew how to do that. Maybe someday I can learn it. Like,
finally, we have a second
cool
question from Kleber. When learning a second language, do you find adults progress more quickly when taught in one language, the foreign one, or two, that and their own? Yeah, I mean that using translation or not during the teaching.
Sorry, I didn't get the question. Can you repeat that, please?
When learning a second language, do you find adults progress more quickly when taught in one or two languages? If they learn only in the foreign language,
using translation, or
if the teacher also uses the native language with them.
Man, to be very honest, I'm not a language teacher. That's not my field. Like, I help people to do what they want to do, but they can't. That's what I do as a psychologist. But I'm gonna tell like the experience that I had with my kids here, at least, and my students in general. Because I don't teach English to them. I teach psychology in English. So it's different.
So you are basically, speaking only the foreign language.
Only the foreign language, but I do a lot of translations. For example,
sometimes you say some sentences also in Portuguese to make it clear.
Yeah, sometimes they don't know what I'm saying. I just translate it and keep it up. And this is actually called translanguage. So I use their native language because the focus is communication. I don't want to piss them off, you know. The focus is communication and talk about what they are interested in this case, psychology. And so whenever they struggle to understand, or whenever they actually can't say something to me, because I'm really interested in the content and in communication. So we just use our native language. And then we go back to English. And by doing that, they learn, like they say, let's say the English version of it. I did that. I did actually with my older son as well, because when I started speaking English to him, he was 7 years old. 7 is kind of old for you to start. It's doable, but it's hard. Very few people can actually do that, like the people that I
so maybe
you
asked a question in English, he didn't understand, and then you asked the same question in Portuguese, and then you continue in English.
Let me tell what I did. He was outside here on the porch. We have a hammock. He was swinging the hammock, and I was like, I'm going to start speaking English to him. So just for 1 hour, that was my goal, 1 hour. And I started speaking to him. Of course, he didn't know any English, zero English. Of course, he ran away. He just ran away. And I was like, no, that's not gonna work, because I'm his father. Like, I'm not his teacher. I don't want to teach him the language. I want to interact with him in the language, right? So, but he's 7. So how am I gonna do that? I started translating every single thing that I did. So my conversation with him for a couple of weeks was like that. Hey, Are, let's go have lunch. Vamos lá almoçar. Let's go have lunch. Done. So that was my conversation. Hey, it's bedtime, buddy. Let's go to bed. Vamos pra cama, tá na hora de dormir. Let's go to bed. Let's go to bed. And that was my conversation all day long. It's hard to do. It's kind of a, what is the name that you guys use for that? Consecutive interpretation.
Consecutive.
Myself doing consecutive interpretation with myself. So that's what I did.
Oh, Plínio, can I ask you a question? What time, what age was your son when you started doing that to him?
7.
7 years old.
See, that's the problem. You should have started when he was a baby. I started.
But I didn't know English.
Oh, that's why.
But that's what you
With
did
my-
with the youngest, right?
I didn't know any foreign language, any, zero.
Ah, okay.
And I learned, and once I started learning, I started using with him what I knew. And I kept learning, I kept using, kept learning. So, and it was very interesting first because he stopped running away. So that's good, right, for a son. That's good. And the second thing, he started understanding me. And he started saying, hey, Dad, in Portuguese, because of course, like, he couldn't reply in English, right? He would just reply in Portuguese. But after a couple of days, he started saying, hey, Daddy, I know what you were saying in Portuguese, right? Eu entendi o que você está falando. Não precisa traduzir. He started asking me to stop translating.
From a certain point, you didn't need to translate anymore. And from a certain point, he started answering in English as well.
After more or less 4 months.
I think I will start doing that with my kids. They are going to turn 6 in November, and I never did that before. I will do that.
Choose the language and go for it. It's awesome. It's awesome. And so this is something that you can apply maybe a lot of these techniques that I'm going to teach you guys, because it's not easy to do.
Yeah.
Like
so let's have
it's this discomfort, you know, like
the
this
last
temporary
question.
discomfort.
The last question from Kleber, and then we finish because we already are here for a very long time. So if you teach psychology in English, does that mean that an intermediate level of English is required to attend your classes?
No, not really. Not really. Because I taught different classes, different kinds of classes. So for my grad students, so master's and doctorate students, usually we do this kind of conversation here. So that would be, for example, a class. So they're supposed to understand. Not everything, because not even Portuguese people understand everything, right?
They should have already some level in English.
Yeah, they gotta be able to understand what I'm saying. Let's say 80%, 70%, I don't know, they can follow the class. With my undergrad students, my psychology students, we do something different. So we work with very short periods of time. So for example, and always focused on psychology, right? So for example, I get a 2-3 minute long video about psychology. And usually somebody's explaining something about psychology, like naturally. And then they're supposed to listen to that first and use subtitles, try to understand what the guy's saying there. Then they prepare a talk about that with their own words. And then I explain the content a little better, so a little deeper, let's say. And then we have a talk about that specific content. So it's very selected, right? So
okay.
So this is what we do, and then with time they get better. It's nice because they improve their language. So like in a nutshell, I give them a reason why for them to learn English. They want to be psychologists. They want to talk to professors from other countries, to students from other countries, to read things in English, because in psychology pretty much everything. I mean, like a lot of stuff is in English. We don't have it in Portuguese. So I give them like a reason for them actually to improve by using it.
Okay,
And
thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Well,
Plínio.
Julian, do I have just time to say something quickly? As a
Yeah.
former, I'm a retired language teacher, so I would like to put my 2 cents in. Okay, it has to do with the previous question. I think it was from Kleber as well. And you know how Plínio was saying that he uses English as a tool, but that's not the main goal. The main goal is psychology, right? So that's why you use Portuguese once in a while to ensure that your students understand, because the main goal is for them to understand the content. However, in a true language class where the main goal is just to learn the language, I believe from day one, you have to speak only in that language. I remember when I was still in Brazil in my early 20s going to Cultura Inglesa, and I had this teacher from Scotland who was learning Portuguese, and he started speaking Portuguese to us all the time. One day I said to him, Mr. whatever his name was, you know, it's very hard for me to pay. I don't have a lot of money. This course is very expensive. Could you, and this is an advanced level, it was already FC, fluent conversation English. Please speak to us in English the whole time. He went berserk on me. He said, you're teaching me how to teach. I've been teaching for a long time. You don't have to tell me how to be a teacher. I started crying. That's how I was young and stupid. I left it. I quit. I didn't go back because of that. So anyways, and here in Canada, I taught French for 15 years. After that, I started teaching English as a second language. I had students from all over the world, okay? And when I was teaching French, from day one with my students who could not speak French at all, I would say, bonjour, comment ça va? And my class was totally in French. And I still remember that one day, this girl in grade 7, after 4 months of class, it was a day when for some reason I was tired. I gave them a lot of written work. We didn't have a lot of oral activities. And then she said to me this sentence that I will never forget. Madame Ray, aujourd'hui, on écrit et écrit et écrit. Si on écrit beaucoup, mon petit doigt va casser. After 4 months of class, she said, we are writing so much today. If we write so much, my little finger's going to break. She said that after 4 months, I'll never forget. So yeah, I believe in speaking always the same language. With you, I really admire you for speaking English with your son when he's 7. I started with my son when he was a baby. And then my mother-in-law say, oh, you're going to confuse your child. Yes, he was confused when he was 2 years old. And he would say, instead of give me water, he would say, give me agua. Or, you know what I mean? He would make, yeah. And then when he was 3, he started going to French school. Then he would make a sentence with 3 words, each one in a different language. Beautiful. But that's okay, because eventually, I believe
that's the goal, right?
Yes, I believe he has a lot of initiative, and I believe it's because he always. His brain was used to see things in a different way. He was good in math for that reason too. There's research that shows that. But don't be discouraged, Plínio, when your son speaks back to you in Portuguese, because my son is 30 now. I even text him.
He doesn't that anymore. It's been a couple of years now.
Oh yeah, how old is your son now, Plínio?
He's 12, but I don't even remember, like maybe, I don't know, after 1 year, he stopped speaking Portuguese.
Oh, so he's now speaking in English to you?
Yeah, all the time. Like,
yeah,
fantastic.
4 years ago, right?
Fantastic. But then he's not lazy like my son. My son is lazy because look, I even text him in Portuguese and see that's in English. The one in gray is him telling me that he went to the dentist. So I asked him in English, and I asked him in Portuguese. E aí, alguma cárie? He's 30. So anyways, he writes back in English because it's easier. But what I want to say is don't give up, because what I've seen over those years, all the immigrants
There's no way.
Yes, I see people give up. Yeah, I see people give up easily. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so I talk too much.
That happens a lot. That happens a lot. Yeah. And I think in my situation, it would be harder to start speaking Portuguese to him.
Oh,
harder.
Wow.
Because it's all a matter, that's the thing, like it's the language policy that we adopt here at home. Like it's harder to go back. It's way harder to go back. I think that was yesterday or before yesterday. Sorry.
No, tell your story, then I have a question.
No,
4 days
I
ago?
think, yeah, it was yesterday. I think he wanted to go to the bakery in front of the school, and he wanted to prove to the guy who were there, like at the gate, that I would allow him to go there. So he asked me in English, because we just speak English, like it's natural. And then I replied, yeah, go ahead, go there. You just have to cross the street. And then he showed the guy, he doesn't speak English. And then he said, no, I wanna hear it in Portuguese. And then he said something to me in Portuguese. And then I replied in Portuguese. And then after that, he was like, Daddy, that was so weird. That was so weird to speak Portuguese to you, even by WhatsApp.
But Plínio, what if you and your son are in a group of people, family members, and the people are speaking in Portuguese? Then what?
Depending on the situation, like if there is nobody we know, like doesn't matter. Like, we just keep speaking English.
No, but
For
if
example,
you are
but,
in a group of 10
yeah,
people or 5 people
my
in
friends,
dinner.
my friends who knows like the situation and understand English, or even the ones who don't understand English but don't care, like I know that they don't care, they think it's pretty cool, we just keep speaking English. If there is a specific situation, a group of people that I think it would be uncomfortable for them, and then I switch to Portuguese, but it's hard.
So, but I think it should be natural if both of you could speak Portuguese and English to each other.
Yeah. But it was the choice that I did, because I knew that, especially as a minority language here in Brazil, I'm the only one who does that with him, the only one. And he wouldn't learn if I kept switching back and forth.
So I must say that today you encouraged me a lot to start speaking in English with my kids.
Yeah, your kids, your girls are only 5.
Yeah. I help you out.
So they will start
give a lot of strategies,
almost 6
techniques.
Plínio, just a question. Do you know Bonaire?
Bonaire?
Yes, in Caribbean Sea, the people there speak at the same time in four language. Netherlands, English, Spanish,
Dutch,
French, Dutch, Spanish, English, and language called
Creole, perhaps some Creole.
Yes.
Some
Do you know?
Creole. No, I don't know. We don't remember now.
It's very interesting place to.
Yeah, most people in the world are bilingual. Most people, there are more bilingual than monolinguals. And so this is a huge mistake. This is something that we discuss in the class here. So people try to understand the effects of bilingualism. They should try to understand the effects of monolingualism, because this is the exception. Most people are bilingual. Like, this is the natural thing to do, right? If you consider like what happens the most.
Thank you very much, Plínio. I think we exceeded the time, but it was a very nice conversation here, and people were very excited. I learned a lot.
And you should start speaking English to your girls, Juliano. Yes, today.
Juliano,
how old are they?
They are 5, but they will be 6 in 2 months.
Okay.
Can I give you one tip, Juliano? Maybe we can talk about that later. Man, start with some other language.
Other than
I know that you speak other language, French, with your kids.
But start with some other language. I was thinking about English, which is the most important one.
They become lazy.
Yeah.
Because they.
Do you think I should go for French?
No, they think like that's like the child mindset. I speak English. I can speak to people from all over the world. My son speaks to people from 20 countries, my friends, and they think they're done, you know? So I have like experience, like a lot of families. I can introduce you to some of the families. They chose other language first. The kid became bilingual in French, for example, or German or Italian, whatever. And then later they wanted to learn English because no, I want to learn English.
They needed, yeah.
And it becomes way easier. A bilingual kid learn a third language way easier. Way easier.
Okay.
But think about that.
Okay, thank you.
Want to talk to me later? I can. But of course, like just because this is something that happens. They think no, yeah, because not everybody is a language
enthusiast.
That's the problem, you know. They are gonna learn regardless they're gonna become bilingual.
No matter what.
Speak English, no matter what. But if they don't have this mindset that you guys have, I have it as well, like, I'm gonna learn a lot of language. They're gonna, yeah, it's English, it solves my problem. Seriously. But if you start with another one, they gotta learn English later, because they gotta learn English, right?
Okay, thank you. Thank you. That's great.
Got more confused, even more. Think about that.
People. Good night, everyone.
Obrigada.
Obrigada,
Thanks for
Plínio.
having me. See you guys later.
Merci
Bye.
beaucoup,
Bye,
tout le
guys.
monde.
Thank you.
Au revoir.
Merci.
Grazie mille.